Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Joystick Jungle podcast. Today it is just me, your host, Jason Johnson, your favorite, nature bro going solo. I just wanted to, start off by saying we are having a lot of technical difficulties today, so I'm recording on the laptop instead of our beautiful cameras and the rest of our setup. So I shall not have, my Joystick Jungle background up. Some of the stuff that I had posted that I was going to play on the TV, I'll have to show to you through my phone, but that's not a big setback. Today is a very joyous day. It's a good thing that's going on here. It is our 10th podcast episode. 98% of podcasts never make to their 10th episode, so we are on top right now. I just wanted to put that out there. It's a really good day. Everything's going on. Had school today. Wasn't the funnest little day because I forgot to wrap my ankle this weekend. We had a family reunion and I ended up rolling my ankle. So it's a little busted at the moment. But besides that, day's been great. Things have been awesome lately. I've been doing some fly tying. That's actually what our episode today is going to be about. I have a couple little talking points and stuff on fly fishing from a fly tying standpoint. I'm gonna start off by, putting the main thing out there. There are four main types of flies, being dry flies, which are on top of the water. They sit on top of the water and they kind of float and mimic like adult insects. Mimic like adult insects or uh well, it's basically like adult insects on top of the water. They mimic them and they drawing blanks, drawing blanks, drawing blanks. Trigger more aggressive strikes. If you can tie this to bass fishing or uh, maybe musky fishing or pike fishing, depending on where you are in the world, it's like topwater strikes. Like if you're using a frog or a buzz bait, something of the sort. It's the fly fishing equivalent. Second category we're going to get into are wet flies. That kind of has that's the generalization of the next three, the rest of the four. But wet flies basically are flies that you fish underwater. Primarily, they're not the ones that float on top. They underwater. They mimic our first category, which is going to be nymphs. I'm gonna sit here and pull it up on my phone because we are not able to use our TV currently. We have to get that figured out. Hmm. All right, so start this off. We'll get my rotate going. This is, let me get it turned. A dry fly. This will be, precisely what you're fishing on top of the water to mimic adult insects like mayflies, caddisflies, any other, sort of fly that would be landing on top of the water. The second would be nymphs, which are the larval stage of many aquatic insects and flying insects, to be kind of like with a butterfly, it starts off as a caterpillar and then it turns into a butterfly. Nymphs are the early stages of like mayflies, caddisflies. This right here is a nymph pattern tied after, I'm gonna take a guess and say a mayfly nymph, stoneflies and caddisflies. Well, stoneflies, I don't think do, but caddisflies in particular create like a casing around them with gravel and like shell bits, whatever is kind of like available on the riverbed, and they kind of like tie themselves down. But we continue. This is my second third. This is my third category being streamers, which represent bait fish, leeches, uh what's another one? Um, this is more on like the swimming side, fish and leeches, not per se bugs or like crawfish or anything of the sort. This is more of those larger fish targeting, bait. This will be imitation of a perch or a perch fry. Keep my phone from turning off. Perch fry. I'm gonna have to go in because this is very unfortunate how everything has been set up today on this beautiful, beautiful day. My fourth category would be terrestrials. And terrestrials are basically our grasshoppers, bumblebees, ants, spiders, things like that. That will be on top of the water. Oop, come on, focus. That's kind of bright. But there's our dragonfly, not dragonfly, grasshopper, some spiders tied, some ants tied, just a whole bunch of different patterns right there currently. That one didn't show up too great. And then there are emergers. Emergers are essentially that stage where they're going from the nymph and emerging out of their, exoskeletons and turning into, a mayfly or a stonefly or caddisfly. And this is my example for it, fly tide. This is the fly I used as an example. You can see the fly is kind of like emerging out of the back of its exoskeleton, to say. And then here are some real life examples. This is, I think, a mayfly emerging. And then I have another one. There we go, another mayfly emerging on top of the water. So that wraps up, I would say, our fly tying part of this video. I'll just say I've personally been tying a couple of flies myself, one of them being a nymph. I've caught plenty of bait fish and panfish and stuff on them. I haven't caught any crappie or bass just yet at our pond. But back to this weekend, we went up to the family farm for a family reunion. Very fun time. We got to pick apples, did a golf tournament, we did a fishing tournament that I was I very much enjoyed. I ended up winning it. I got 20 bucks from it, and then the golf tournament I ended up getting 5 from. But with that fishing tournament that we did, I was the winner mainly because I was using the flies that I brought with me in my tiny little minimized tackle box. But I caught a majority of green sunfish. I would say they're one of the like most prettiest panfish there are, in my opinion. A lot of people would beg to differ and say pumpkin seed or some of the more beautiful, panfish, maybe most beautiful panfish there is. But I find the green sunfish to be my favorite. They have large mouths, kind of like a small bass, and they're long like them too. With bluegill, they're more um, round, kind of like a footballish shape, but the green sunfish are more spread out and elongated. I think they look like little bass in my opinion, and they kind of fight like them too. Ooh, and I bumped the table too much. But yeah, this is a picture of a green sunfish. Very, very pretty. I love their patterns. They have like tiger stripes. They come in yellows, blues, greens, of course, and they have white or either orangish red or yellow fin tips, which I think is very, very, very beautiful. But down at the family farm, get back to that. I got a little off topic there. Family farm, I was casting a streamer. That was one of my flies that I tied over, the weekend and everything. And then the second one I was casting was an emerger or yeah, an emerger because it was a wet fly. I didn't I haven't tied any dry flies yet that I can keep on top of the water. I think I'll have a lot of action. Yesterday I was out, putting the chickens back in their coop and everything, and I was looking out at the pond and there was hundreds of thousands of ripples. I don't know what insects are emerging currently. I think it might be mayflies. No, not mayflies. It's not May. Maybe it's ants or termites having their flight during their like mating season or whatever. But the fish were going crazy. Absolutely awesome. There were so many boils. It was a very pretty sight. And ooh, buzz buzz. Um, but it was a very, very awesome, thing to see. And I was really excited to get out there, but it was kind of late in the afternoon and I was finishing up on some of my homework. Senior year, I have to really lock in there, make sure everything goes successful. But to continue, finish up, wrapping up our fly part of this episode, I was mimicking like minnows or mosquito fish with my streamer, and I got a lot of bites on that by some pretty decent. I missed a couple of decent sunfish, but I ended up winning the contest because I caught the largest. It was about 5 inches or so. Good little green sunfish, but it was just a fun time. I had a family member down there that I taught, kind of how to fish with flies. He was having a hard time, catching anything. And I gave him a fly to throw and I gave him a little bobber kind of so he can get it out there further. He's a lot younger than me. But he ended up getting on a fish and it was a really good time, enjoyable family event. We got out. Now I'm gonna get back to the slideshows because I wanted to, kind of give you all a show and tell today, kind of what's been going on in my life, some of my best moments, fishing, and, share that with you. I was planning on putting this up on the TV, but that unfortunately did not work out the way we were wanting it to. So we were going to start off with the beautiful Joystick Jungle podcast, logo. I love this thing. It's amazing. Beautiful, beautiful, great day. And this is the beginning of our show and tell. I'm just going to leave it like such. I'm going to start swiping. So first things first, have this beautiful crappie I caught. I think that's like right after we came back. I think that might have been uh Saturday or like no, right before we left. I think that might have been Saturday. But it was a really nice day. We got out there. I got out there and I was fishing with what's the word? Texas rig. I had a Texas rig like craw that I was throwing and I put it weightless so that it didn't sink super fast and I just twisted it the right under the surface. I cast it like right over the weeds and I casted it and I jerked it like right past it, just kept it right on the surface. And I got a big bite and I set the hook and this Mondo crappie just came out and took it. Now, small bass. I got this a couple of days ago with bluegill or baby bluegill bait fish that I was using, and then the one on the for you, I think it would be the right. It's a bass that had scoliosis. My first fish I've caught that ever had like scoliosis. But I was down at the Lake of the Ozarks fishing with one of my friends that I met down there, and it was shaped like a C. Like it had such a hump on top of it that when I first hooked into it, I thought it was a drum or a carp, and then I realized once I got it up that it was a bass. But I was fishing for panfish to catch I think catfish bait, and yeah, he just came up and took it. I was fishing with corn. Actually, it was a very funny thing. I didn't expect to catch a bass on corn, but that was awesome. I was down there and I was using I think it was a Rebel Craw, one of my favorite, lure companies being Rebel, and they're all their small little baits. I use the Crick Hopper a lot. I ended up losing mine in the same tree I lost the last one in at the pond. But, I was fishing with a Rebel Craw and I caught another bass. And then the picture beside it is the 20-pound catfish that I ended up catching down when I was at the Ozarks. I put it beside my leg to kind of show the uh size. I'm not a very small guy on the lower half. I'm very, very strong on the bottom. So I sat there. I'm zoom in a little bit. Kind of get a better photo there. But this is my 20-pound cat that me and my friend ended up catching while we are down at the Lake of the Ozarks. And then beside it's about a 5-pounder, nothing too heavy. just kind of catfish. He was doing a lot of cooking and catching, down there. So I helped him out with that. We filleted a lot of catfish, had a fun time. This is actually some of the fillets, and then another one of the catfish he caught. Oh, okay, come on now. There we go. Yeah, so we ended up filleting them down. At the end of some of the dock slips, they had like filleting tables, and he had his own knife and everything. We got out there and we really got after it, washed everything off, had a fun time. But I think that might have been like my favorite, best lake trip. I got down there, did a lot of catching and cook. I've been wanting to do it for a long time now. My sister and mom have kind of been like, no, not today. They've been cooking dinner. But it's been like a great experience, kind of having that like independence to get out there and polish my knife skills, practice, things I haven't practiced before. I think I've filleted maybe one other time by myself, and it was with the help of Brian. He sat there and we were filleting, I think, like some 10-inch, 11-inch bluegill that I ended up catching out of the pond back when it was very prosperous and all the fish were doing good. This is another what's it? Angle of the bass that I caught. Oh, I actually caught it on a Strike King Bitsy minnow or Bitsy crank or whatever. But this is another look at the bass. And then on the right is, I think, the year before, I ended up catching like a 9-pound flathead. And this thing was absolutely amazing. No, no, I think it was a little bit bigger than nine, maybe like 13-pound flathead. It's a little dark, but that's the fish compared to my body. Absolutely awesome. It was a great experience. I sat there and it just well, how I caught it was I was sitting out there and I was using one of the big, catfish rods or whatever we have down at the Lake of the Ozarks at the condo. And I was sitting down there on my phone, nothing was going on. And I was like, well, I'm gonna pack up, I'm gonna go to a different spot. And I start reeling it in. And I guess it had taken it and it just sat with it right there. But as soon as I started reeling, it just started peeling drag. So I ended up getting it up and I had my net with me. I got it out and I was freaking out. And there's some other people out on the boat slips, about to go back on their boat and they were coming back down to hang out. And they're just like, wow, nice fish. It was a really fun experience. A great time. I have a video, but it's still not the clearest because I was kind of freaking out. My hands were shaking. It ended up like not centering, so the video's sideways. It was very unfortunate. But then to end our show and tell today, I have some, I'm not going to say baby pictures, but proof of my dedication to the fishing life. We were sitting here on this joyous day with me holding, I think, about a 6 pound bass that we ended up catching behind, I think, like my dad's workplace at the time, factory, and then catfish that I caught in North Carolina on, I think, like the Noose River or something like that. But it was a really, really fun time and good day. And with that, we are at the end of our show and tell. Yeah, no, that is basically, what I've been doing recently with, my free time out of school. I've been tying flies. My next flies I'm going to be planning on tying are going to be a little bit larger in size, probably another nymph where I have, some rubber legs or something. I have a fly kit that I got for last Christmas that I've been messing with recently. I need to invest in um a vise so I can hold my flies in place as I tie them. I've been kind of doing it by hand and it's not turning out terrible, but it could be better. You can always improve your skills with that. So I'm gonna invest in getting me a vise and another one. I'm gonna be tying um what's a good, model? Dry fly. Maybe another streamer. I think I might tie another streamer with more vivid patterns or like a little bit larger because the current streamer I have is just all white and it's a mix between kind of like a parachute type fly and a streamer. So it sits there and it has like the hook shank that goes around, but on that, it like has a little part that comes off on the back that kind of sticks up, kind of like a fin, or yeah, like kind of like a dorsal fin, or maybe a pair of wings or a leg, and then it has a little tail that comes off the end of it, and it's been working really well for me. But with that, we're gonna try to get the setup in here fixed, take care of the TV and everything, and the cameras and get everything working, the way it should, so we can have the rest of our podcast and everything, go smoothly for next time. With that, I'm gonna end it here. I would like to say thank you for everybody who showed up and came. It's been, a very enjoyable time. I've been, kind of not on a hiatus, but busy with both school and then kind of home, making sure that I'm comfortable in my own space. I had to move my bed around a little bit. Also, I had to sit there and just kind of throw away some things. Just kind of growing up, growing into new stuff, and um rotating interest. A lot of things I liked as a kid, I don't really like as much as more. I used to be like really, really into Beyblades and Pokemon cards. I'm still into Pokemon cards a little bit, but I'm not a huge like collector. I won't go out and buy them. It's more of like maybe if I see a pack that's cheap, I'll be like, hey, let me get that. See if I get something cool. I like the holographics. I've never been a big fan of like EXs and GXs. They seem a little too flashy for me. I like things that are more low key and chill. But yeah, I'm just been kind of relaxing, taking care of things, staying out of the limelight. I'm gonna start kind of like VTubing, I guess, a little bit, and go through and uh well, for those of you who don't know what VTubing is, it's basically virtual YouTubing. So I can sit there and I can go on as like a animated character that I make, and it follows all of my movements and facial features and any expression or anything I might make. It's very cool, and it's a concept that I kind of like got into a lot when I was younger because of not wanting to like do a face reveal or have my face on camera when I did YouTube. So I used an app called Reality, and basically you can go on there as like your own little avatar or whatever, and you can still like, talk to people, but they don't know what you look like. So it kind of gives a sense of privacy, maybe more expression for certain people. I really recommend it personally. It helped me out a lot when I was younger because I kind of got to have that like experience of being out in the world and kind of uh, interacting with people without having them know what I look like. It gave a lot of privacy. And I feel like some people might need that, a way to express themselves without being judged on the way they look. But without further ado, I've kind of got sidetracked again. I'm gonna end up ending it here. Thank you to everyone who came today. I really appreciate it. We're gonna get the podcast setup fixed in here, and I will be giving y'all a very, very explosive and happy and enjoyable podcast next week. Ow, shoot, I'm out.